All right, we're back, guys. It is trigger warning 2A. I'm Antonia Okafor.
And I'm Nina Prevot. Good to see everyone.
Yes, good to see you guys. You guys are here to listen to all things Second Amendment, gun policy, legislation, and culture when it comes to pretty much everything. We talk about it. So don't forget, before you guys leave our conversation, to like, or do it right now. You can like and subscribe. And you can also, if you want to support us, you can.
Yeah, you can go to our Patreon. I'm sorry, I went to go check the live chat to make sure that we were on. But you can go to our Patreon. It's Trigger Warning 2A Podcast, and that's where you can support us financially because, as I'm sure a lot of you know, YouTube is maybe 50-50 on keeping our monetization going forward. So we really appreciate your support. Anything that you can give, even if it's $1, will matter to us. So,
yeah, all the support helps. And so speaking about that, which is funny, because I never was going to do that in the first place. Well, because YouTube didn't really, we thought didn't have an issue with us. So some of you guys already know about what happened last week. Actually, I think it was It wasn't even that long ago. It was like a few days ago. Friday? No, earlier than that, because I went before the Internet Convention, which we'll talk about later. We will talk about UNRA. I mean, not in a bad way. Anyways, next. So, yeah, we'll talk about the convention. But, so I was at work and I was just leaving, checked my email on my phone because a millennial does have to check my phone whenever I don't, I'm away from it for like 10 minutes. And I checked my email and I get 2 back-to-back emails. And the first email that I got that was kind of weird was that saying from YouTube that my super chats were taken off, that they were disabled. And at first, when I first got that, I was like, it's like Nina playing around with the YouTube or something. And she's like, you know what? We don't need this. I don't know. Of course, I throw her under the bus immediately. Nina. So I was like, I'll discuss this with her later. And so, but then the next email I get immediately after was that not only is our super chats turned off on this channel, but also the whole entire channel was demonetized. So they had quote unquote, I should actually read the actual thing. And I know some of you guys are new on here because you followed us because after this whole catastrophe. But the email was really the star when it came to all of this. It's really what got a lot of people upset as well. So let's see what YouTube said, if I remember.
And as you all know who watch this channel, I'm sure you've been following a lot of the censorship that happens on social media. And oftentimes with YouTube, they might say, oh, we're demonetizing this one video. Or, oh, yeah, we're sorry, this isn't advertiser friendly. Or this one video has to come down because of a copyright strike. But in this instance, it was literally just kind of a vague, we kind of decided that your content generally shouldn't be monetized. So,
yeah. So this is the email that I received that day. Hi, Antonia Okafor. Hey, YouTube. During a recent review, our team of, get this, policy specialists carefully looked over the videos you uploaded to your channel. Antonia Okafor. Ooh, should have put my middle name in there. We found that a significant portion of your channel is not in line with our YouTube partner program policies. As of today, your channel is not eligible to monetize and you will not have access to monetization tools and features. Please go to our monetization page to read more about the specific policy our specialists flagged. So, I love this part. Actually, this is the condescending part. We know this is tough news. And sometimes we have to make difficult decisions.
It's so cringy.
Anyway. Yeah, it's very difficult. We have a responsibility to ensure our community is safe for creators, viewers, and advertisers because you're not safe.
We're so dangerous, guys. We're so dangerous.
At the same time, we understand that you may have unintentionally made mistakes. Like thinking differently. I don't know. That's why you'll be able to reapply for the YouTube partner program in 30 days. Don't worry. You're not gonna really
I trust that appeal process.
So that was our word third email that I received from YouTube. So I was kind of like tired that day because I woke up early to work, and I was just like, you know what, I'm tired. I'm like, give me a sandwich. I'm going home to take a nap. But then I was like, you know what, let me share this with my good friend and censorship king. When dealing with it, Dave Rubin.
We love Dave Rubin. Thank you, Dave.
So I sent it to Dave, and because he's actually dealt with it, obviously, he's dealt with this before. But usually he's dealt with this in the fact that the videos, not the entire channel, which I wasn't even thinking about at the time, but he definitely made it known. And he was like, unacceptable. You need to bring this up. Like, you need to make people aware that this is happening. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll talk about it. Send it to Nina. She's like, I'm getting my lawyer stuff. Like, this is why I became a lawyer, for this reason.
I did say something like that.
For this moment right here. And so Dave tweets it out. A couple of my other friends in the conservative world tweet it out. I tweet it out, and it blows up, to say the least. Everybody was talking about it. Breitbart did a whole article on it. Thank you, Breitbart, for doing that, because if they didn't, and they didn't also put all the other people who were talking about it and making a big deal about it, again, it's because, not only just because, but they demonetized our entire channel.
The super chats.
Yeah, and
like the super chats.
Exactly.
Those are voluntarily paid by the viewers.
Like you. That sounds very PBS-y, but it is.
Though.
Viewers like you are the one who's paying us.
PBS questions. That's pretty much what they are. And they told us we couldn't even have those.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we keep going, I know there are people on here. Let's just respond before we go to the next part of the story.
Yeah, let's see. Brian Vocht, I think, looks German to me, says, Patreon are no friends of our constitutional rights.
Ugh.
And yeah, this was something I saw a lot in the commentary. And, you know, I will agree that Patreon has done some things that makes me question how trustworthy they are in terms of demonetization as well. But at the moment, there aren't that many alternatives available as of yet. Like, if we could jump on the, you know, one that Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin have kind of been talking about that they're designing, you know, I'm sure we would have done that. It just is not in being.
Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll talk
get
to
it
Dave
together. But it's just, it's hard, you know, to know where to go. And for the time being, Patreon has been at least somewhat okay to some gun rights advocates. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they've gotten worse since I last checked, but we're just kind of starting up. We're not going to die on the Patreon hill, so to speak.
Yeah.
I just think that it's a good way to get our message out there, because a lot of people know about Patreon too. That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and people were talking about, well, no one's really getting money from it anyways, and I do definitely see that people are really going towards that, but that's not 100% true in the fact that they don't get anything. People do definitely still get, especially because, again, it's not always ad revenue, it's super chats, people who are contributing, the audience who want to be involved. So for them to do both was the part where I was just like, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people were saying the same thing too. So yeah. Yeah. But for the time being, thanks for those who are supporting us on
really
Patreon.
Appreciate it.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And the other thing is, eventually, you know, we're still kind of getting started. Eventually, we haven't talked about this in too much detail, but I'd like to have just a pay situation on our own website where you could pay and it would be monthly and it would still come to us. I know that there's a way that we could get that set up, but baby steps.
Yeah.
So let's see. Enjoy it, bro says, you two are gorgeous. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
concerned about why that stopped.
Oh yeah. I wonder if I just paused it. Here, I'm just gonna refresh the feed to make sure that you guys can hear us.
Okay. If you can't hear us, let us know. Or see us, or if it's off. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay,
I think we're good now. All right. Sorry about that.
Baby step.
Baby steps. Let's see. Blatant attack on generally more conservative personalities. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
She's like, don't let me in there. I'm a libertarian.
Companies with virtual monopolies over their product do not have the right to deny our constitutional rights. Lawyer up. I am a lawyer. And actually, you know, I would have, had they not reinstated our monetization almost immediately, like within
Yes.
like a few
I was
hours
like,
of
Nina,
them,
okay, wait.
I would have taken legal action against them because it wouldn't have been on a constitutional basis. It would have been on the fact that they're not honest about what their policies are. And the statements that they made, like when you actually click the link that it said, oh, find out more, they were saying that we were doing things that were so far off from what is on Antonia's channel. It was just ridiculous.
There's a part about video streaming, video game streaming,
video game streaming.
Like, this is not Twitch.
And I'm a gamer, but I've never streamed on Antonia's channel. So yeah, I don't know. We do what we can here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
See the Sargon of Akkad affair, not good. Yeah, I agree. And that's when Dave and Jordan Peterson and Tim Pool and a lot of people jettisoned from Patreon. And I know a lot of people are upset about that because Sargon of Akkad is really kind of he's sort of like almost center left, I would say. Like he's not a real right-wing figure. And he got demonetized, or he got his whole Patreon deleted because he essentially like said a bad word on a different stream on YouTube. It wasn't even his channel. So it was kind of a long thing. And I understand. I hear ya, you know, but.
So if you want to support us directly, you can go to empower2a.org. We do have a membership sustaining program there. So if that's what you want to do, but we do appreciate those who still go to Patreon until that happens, because then we're definitely going to be making a fuss about them deleting it if they do that to us.
And if they do delete us, we'll make a big fuss about it. So
that's
you can be assured about that, especially if we're not doing anything that violates their written policies. You know, there is a lawyer of the two of us, so we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Last thing you said was lost you for a minute, but I think we fixed that.
Okay. All right, cool.
So,
yeah. So, I mean, I think she kind of went on with the story. I would say, I don't say the pinnacle. There were a lot of amazing people who were tweeting, whether they had a platform or not. By the end of that day, actually, they told Breitbart, this is how peons we are.
How weird this was, too.
Okay. The YouTube spokesperson, whoever that person is, spoke with Breitbart directly and told them, wow, it's funny, I can see like the delay, I can see my hands like I'm like, no, it's me. I'm like, but I really speak with my hands, guys. I'm kind of Italian. Not really. Anyways, so they spoke with Breitbart telling them that I'll go back to it, but basically the gist was that they are always, you know, they have the panel policy experts and they're really detail oriented when it comes to making sure that things like this have to do with the fact that you violated a policy and in no way is this ever politically motivated. But we did incorrectly remove her, so we'll switch that back on for her. So without telling her, but you know, more or less that's what they said in the spokesperson to Breitbart. I found that out through Breitbart because they spoke to Breitbart directly and not me. Checked up my YouTube and it looked like as if nothing had ever happened. Didn't have any strike, didn't have a warning or anything. And that's where, so there are a lot of people who were also, maybe even some supporters, but a lot of people who are just trying to be critical and be like, well, I see this and I see that. And that must be the reason why they really demonetized you. Well, if that were their actual reason, then first they wouldn't just say, we incorrectly, you know, removed you.
Right. They would have been correct.
Exactly.
If those were the reasons.
In those reasons that they tried to give me weren't.
Were bogus.
Yeah. So we were gonna get them either way. But that's why we just knew that they were just putting something on there just so they, you know, didn't get in trouble. But also the sad part of this whole thing is that it took people with platforms retweeting, talking about it, talking to the news organization talking about it for anything like this to happen. At the end of the day, also Donald Trump Jr. He actually messaged me that day and was like, hey, I want to talk about this, but he was going on a hunting trip. Totally good. He got his turkey. Good job, Donald Trump Jr. And then later on, he actually tweeted about it too. And we were really please. Actually, that's when they put back the demonetization.
They did it again after that.
They're like, I thought we were done with this. We talked to Breitbart, and now you bring Donald Trump Jr. into this. Yes, we are. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that it's really fortunate that you know Dave Rubin and all of that, because so many times I'm sure people just get an email like that from YouTube and might even take to Twitter and say, YouTube, what the heck? I didn't violate your terms. There's literally no way possible to speak to a human at your company. Why did this occur? But luckily, Antonia's in a position where, you know, she has people who have a big enough platform to speak out about it, where eventually, news organizations inquired about it. Had Breitbart not even reached out to them, you might not even have had them issue that it was an error. I mean,
that's true.
Because what they tried to do was just put it back. You know, the way Jordan Peterson had his whole Google account deleted, like his Gmail was deleted one time, and then there was a big ruckus on Twitter, and then it all just magically appeared again. Yeah. And YouTube and Google they're all the same company. So I do think that something weird happened there, and we're lucky that we have enough people who would have an outcry about it. Absolutely. That it was switched back on. But so many people don't have that luxury.
No,
so
they don't.
It's really a problem.
And we actually have a special guest later today. If it's like we're gonna be here on for hours. Probably in a few minutes. His name is Dave. He's the host of 3 Gun Show, and he's going to talk to us about what has been happening in the censorship world and the 2A world, really, and what happened to him and his podcast. So we're going to actually have him on soon, but while we're doing that, I don't know if you have any more questions. Let me get him on. Oh yeah, I guess you can't do it while I'm doing that. I didn't know if you
Let's see. Weird. So some people Brian Vocht in the live chat says, having to go to Google Hangouts, or excuse me, Google Incognito to get to empowered2a.org. And I wanted to mention that to you too.
Oh, what?
It was hard. It's been hard for me to get to the Empowered website. It kind of.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, someone's offering to interview Antonia in the live chat.
Oh.
We'll address that later, but we appreciate the offer. Brian Vogt also says NRA needs complete leadership change and remove Ackerman McQueen. So I haven't been following that as much.
I guess we could talk about that now while we're here. So immediately after, I'm on the NRA outreach committee. So I have a duty to be at all the meetings, which happen to usually they always take place at least at the NRA convention, because it's really the annual membership meeting. That's what the convention really is. So we're doing all the business stuff. I was there, and then all 2A hell broke loose this weekend. If you guys don't know, I'll kind of sum it up for you guys. Basically, and you know what? I don't have any insider knowledge. This is all from me reading National Review and stuff like that. This is not something oh my goodness, Antonia was there at the scene of the crime. No. Other than just being literally there, I wasn't there when it happened. But reading up on it, I remember it was Friday night, I think. It was Friday night, because Saturday was a membership meeting. And Friday, they were saying that a couple of people from the board, the NRA board, went to Wayne LaPierre and asked him to step down, resign. And if he didn't resign, this is what the letter Wayne LaPierre put out later. It was Oliver North who was leading that faction of board members saying that he should resign. And it really had to do with the whole Ackerman McQueen, thing that's going on. Oliver North was paid to be a part of Ackerman McQueen as well as be the president. And so we had, they had a deal basically saying, if you don't step down, we're going to disclose some information about you. Hey, Dave.
Hey.
we're going NRA. We're talking about NRA, so maybe you're gonna save us through that. So we can definitely talk more about that. In fact, I think we should just do a whole episode on it.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. We will talk about it.
Yes, we will talk about it. It's like, oh, the suspense. I know. Sorry.
I'm definitely gonna tune in for that one. It sounds like an exciting story.
Yeah, it's been an interesting weekend. So, but thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today on Trigger Warning 2A. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we kind of gave a little snippet of what happened to you guys. Not really, other than just like saying that you guys have dealt with the whole censorship thing as well, just like we have. But can you share more about you and the podcast, and then share about the story about what happened?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I host a podcast called The 3 Gun Show. And it's about a competitive shooting sport called 3 Gun, which, if your listeners are familiar with that, it consists of a rifle, pistol, and a shotgun. And we shoot paper targets, steel targets, clay targets, and we do it all for time. It's like a drag race with guns. It's a ton of fun. It's done all over the country, and even other parts of the world too. So I've had podcasts since 2015. So for 4 years now, I've been the Apple Podcast store, I guess, directory as they call it now. Used to be called iTunes, but now it's Apple Podcast Directory. But yeah, last 2 Wednesdays ago, the 17th, I got an email saying that I'm no longer in the directory. And as you can imagine, for someone who small time creator who, this is my full time income, this is what I do. That was a little worrisome when I got that email.
Wow.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Can you elaborate more on what that email said? Did they say any, did they tell you they have a panel of policy experts, looking at your stuff?
Nope.
They didn't even tell you that one.
No. I mean, I can read the exact email to you, but it said you've been unlisted from the directory. And so I responded to that email, and it said, or I got an autoresponder back saying like, this email no longer blah, blah, blah. So contact us through customer service. So by that time I'd already found by the time I got the email back was the next day. So I'd already found the customer service link, and I sent an inquiry with, like a screen capture of like, hey, this happened. This is my RSS feed. This is the name of my channel. I've been here for 4 years. What's going on? And I submitted my podcast as a new podcast. So I was like, well, we'll just submit it as a new one. We'll try to do it that way. So I got rejected from submitting it again. And then I got an email back, a very helpful email saying, hey, there's some extra text in your, there's a description in your title and in your author field, which is totally true. Like back in 2015, when I started this, like you could fill text anywhere you wanted to, and all those words went into their search algorithm, right? And now they're kind of cleaning it up, and they don't want it to say the 3 Gun Show with Dave Hartman, a weekly multi-gun podcast about blah 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 blah, right? They just want to say 3 Gun Show with Dave Hartman. So I totally understand, but like, hey, like a little email would have been nice after being in your directory for 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if you're willing to change those things, did they reinstate you on the list, or?
That's an amazing question. That's where this story gets kind of fun is, yeah, so I did make those changes, and I resubmitted it, as well as emailed back, said, hey, thank you for letting me know. I was super polite because I understand like they're the gatekeepers, so I just wanted to get back in the directory. So super polite, said, hey, thanks for letting me know. I definitely did this wrong, and thanks for pointing it out. I fixed it. And then I was rejected again. And this time it was for a different reason. And it was for explicit content in my tags. And I was like, well, okay, well, what do you mean by tags? And so just a little bit of background on me, like I've got this podcast thing down, and anytime I figure like there's a technical problem, I got to Google it or something, because like I'm not real tech savvy. But so I was like, okay, well, in my tags, like I know what tags are. So I ran through every tag I had like on my website, no explicit words or anything. And so several days of emails later, because I would email with a question and then I'd get an email the next day and then that would continue.
Mm-hmm.
And so several days later, I find that 3 years ago, I linked, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I linked to a company called Tactical Shit.
Oh yeah, I've actually worked with them.
Yeah, exactly. So you're familiar with them. So the fact that I had a link from 3 years ago when one of my guests was on who was sponsored by them, I just said, hey, there's a list of so-and-so sponsors. Like that content on my website, gets fed through the RSS feed to iTunes, and they denied me for that. And there was another instance where I said that Rock Castle Shooting Center had a kick-ass band. And so for those two things, and there were like 4 instances of the tactile shit, but for those 2 things, I was denied from being back in their store, and they wouldn't tell me why. And they said it was explicit, and they're like, well, they would tell me which episodes, but not like the specifics. So I'm combing through, and to me, like being familiar with that store as like a place to buy gun parts, I just breezed right past it. I didn't even think that was a bad word or anything. And so, yeah, it took me several days until I finally figured out what it was. So finally last Friday, I get it all figured out, email the person back that was helping me, and they said, okay, cool, we've accepted you. You'll be up in a couple of days. And so today I'm back in the iTunes directory. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. Yay. But in the meantime, I was explaining this to my non-tech savvy brother, and he's like, well, I swear I've heard podcasts with swear words in them. So
yeah,
just for giggles, right? I Google, or not Google, I search for the term shit in the podcast store and the term ass in the podcast store. And of course, there's just tons and tons of them. And
I'm sure there's thousands.
There's thousands of podcasts that have SHIT in their title and ASS in their title, just tons and tons and tons of them. And so I asked, the person I was emailing with, like, hey, I know you're probably only going to tell me we can talk about my specific case, but what about this? And I sent her screen caps, or him, I'm not sure, it was Morgan, but the answer was like, yeah, we can only talk about your specific case. But it's like, do you not see the hypocrisy here?
Yeah. Ugh. I didn't even know that part. I just know the directory aspect, but I didn't know that you have all these receipts basically of them telling you all this stuff. The fact that, the story that they finally started emailing you back, that's nice. I was going to say, at least you have a human being behind it, but not giving you anything better than probably what like the auto stuff was saying, because they're just like, look, focus on this issue, focus on this person's podcast, because we're basically making it unique to them. We don't really care about everybody else's. Yeah, pretty much. And and when you get some kind of a response like that, you're just like, what do I do? Like, you can't talk to someone real time or anything, and you don't have a contact. And so because of the way I named the show, I didn't really think about it like the term gun and show next to each other. A lot of people think it's like gun show, like, where you go and sell guns, So I frequently wonder if there's some sort of bias or something because of that, because I have been mistaken in other areas, like trying to get insurance for my small business as like, we don't deal with companies that sell at gun shows. It's like, no, it's not what you think. You put 3 gun show on there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and they just see that as 3 gun shows.
A hyphen or something, or
there's a hyphen, and clearly you have a command of the English language, so you know what that means.
It helps to have a command of the English language.
It does. Yeah. It really does. It helps to also know anything about guns. That's the frustrating thing, and the part where they're just not being honest is that they're not even trying to figure out, like, they're putting all these policies in place that have to do with Second Amendment and the gun issues. Whether that's legislation or even policies like company policy, and yet they won't even bother to do their own research about the stuff that they're trying to restrict. Like, know the difference between a 3 gun show and know that there's 3 gunning, like there's a whole concept of 3 gun. And then also know that, gun show, well, there's a 3 in front and a hyphen too. So maybe it's not talking about a gun show. And even if it was talking about a gun show. Who cares? You know?
Maybe they think that you were selling 3 guns per podcast.
That's actually a really good concept.
Exactly.
I'm gonna write that down.
Because otherwise, it's just nonsensical to think that a podcast was a gun show. Like I just don't like a gun show where you could actually purchase firearms.
Yeah, you know, and I think like, you know, I try to in life like assume people are operating out of good, you know, and not always assume the worst possible thing. So, you know, it's possible that someone just saw that and thought like, oh, well, you know, we don't allow that, or it's not cool, or whatever, and just carte blanche, you know, got rid of it. But as like you know, a small business owner and someone who's like trying to make this on my own, it's like can't help but feel like you're you know, they're a little bit against you, especially when you compound like Apple and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you know, like how come my account's not growing like it was, you know, years ago? So it's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that the real offensive term that you used was gun?
You know, with the information they gave me, no, it was the 2 words that we already said. But if you look at like the totality of the evidence, like I have to take them at their word. You know, like I don't think that they have a reason to be dishonest with me. You know, like I can't imagine someone going into work, sitting down at their computer terminal, communicating with customers, and intentionally being dishonest, right? So, I have to take
when you're the messenger.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I mean based on the content on my show and the stuff that I see all over the industry, like, you know, your YouTube channel getting shut down and various other things, like all of a sudden all these accounts disappear from Instagram and then they're back and stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, there is something going on. And we heard it from Jack Dorsey from Twitter when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. Like they didn't have solid answers for the reasons that they quell, you know, right-wing air quotes speech, you know, and for me, I don't look at it as like right or left. I look at it as like, you know, these are the rights and liberties afforded to us, or excuse me, outlined by the Constitution, and that's just being an American. It's not right or left issues. It's like these are American values, and we are in America.
Absolutely, and I would say, I mean, even the thing is that now, though. You're like, that makes sense, American values. But unfortunately, we're in a time right now where people want to make it cool that, you know, to hate America or to be anti-America, to be honest.
It's trendy.
Yeah, it is very trendy and it's really sad. So
it's frightening, isn't it? Like, I mean, we're all in this together. We're in this country. Like, and, you know, on like a micro level, like I can walk out and talk to my neighbors and they may not share the same views as me, but we can have like a legitimate exchange, and we can, you know, be courteous to each other and everything. But the noise that you hear in the media and the shouting each other down and stuff, it's like, it's not rational discourse, and that's not what we were founded on.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's important to remember that places like Twitter are not real life. I feel like a lot of us end up getting, or at least me, I'll end up getting depressed just reading like my Twitter feed. But I do think that it's just social media companies like that, they're capable of bringing out the worst in us, especially, you know, even I'm a very polite person. If you meet me in public, I would never be rude, but on Twitter, I get a little spicy. So
look out.
But yeah, I agree. And that's the other thing I was going to comment on too, is I've always thought that kind of the Bill of Rights was not really a left or right thing. That was kind of we're all on the same page about the Bill of Rights. But you know, you get surprised every day.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, is it though? For some people, like that's what they think. And like, I know how many times you've probably got this about the whole, oh, well, the Second Amendment wasn't for us, right? Like, so that's part of the Bill of Rights. It's like, so there's legitimately people who are just like, well, the Constitution isn't for us. It's so then they don't think that these rights are anything that should be of left or right issue, because they don't think it should be something that's for anybody at all.
Yeah. Well, the weird hypocrisy that I love is that when they get out their iPhone and they express their First Amendment right, while saying that the Second Amendment was written for muskets, that's my my favorite thing is like Twitter. No one could have even imagined Twitter.
Yeah,
Like,
and free speech was for a quill.
Yeah, exactly. As fast as you can write while dipping your pen in ink,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
True.
yeah. Oh my goodness, Steve Crowder. Steve. I'm a first name basis, dude. Like short. He's like that. You don't call me Steve. I remember like earlier on, like maybe a couple years ago. Do you remember that one he did about the video on the Second Amendment? It's like with the founders, and he's like, "Oh, unless a mass shooting happens, then we can."
Yes.
Like, and then I love that. Like that was so true. It's like, yes, guys, you guys really think like this is what's happening? Is like, I mean, we're talking about with this, Texas speaker and him basically nixing constitutional carry because when we find out, obviously, had nothing to do with being a gun, nut or whatever they were trying to portray him as. But because he said this happened, and therefore that he can't allow constitutional carry to happen. Because instances happen or take place does not allow you any ability to then therefore restrict our rights in any circumstance. Like in mass shootings, that does not allow you to then say, you know what, you shouldn't, the Bill of Rights, that's nice. But I mean, the Bill of Rights didn't include this shooting. It didn't include like this happening or the First Amendment. Well, the First Amendment wasn't about just, talking about the weather. It was for instances where it gets really bad, where it gets really difficult and complex, that the American government is saying, we will protect your constitutional rights, which that's nice of them to say. But at the end of the day, it's God created. And we have them because we are created beings by God. That's why we have these rights. Exactly. Thank you, America, for protecting them, saying you will. But we're created beings by God, and that's why we have them.
And they're inalienable rights, right? We're born with them. It's not like they're given to us by a benevolent government that can take them away if we misuse them. Like these are our rights. Like they're it's a part of being a natural human.
Absolutely.
Right. And governments can't really be benevolent. Sorry, I messed up that delivery, but really, I've never seen a government act for the benevolence of its people for the most part, especially when it comes to our constitutional rights. They tend to just keep whittling away at them.
Yeah, we're trying to get them back, like you were saying that day with Rachel. Like literally, we're trying to get our rights back because they've been chipped away. So much already. But
and that's the funny part. You were just talking about the NRA. That's the funny part when anyone once says like, "Oh, why don't you compromise?" Like I've been compromising since I've been aware of all the stuff that you've been taking from me. So when do you give?
Exactly. And the other side is not afraid to do that, to go all the way to the super left side, but for some reason we're afraid of really sticking up for our principles because we're always considered that fringe, and that's the right wing, like oh goodness, words that try to hurt us. And it's like, no, we're gonna stick to
we fear being called radical, even though we're totally really mainstream in terms of what our beliefs are, even going back like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
all mainstream.
Even before 2016, because we're talking about Bernie Sanders and how drastically things have changed since Bernie Sanders was like the radical weird one. Now he's mainstream in the Democrats.
Yeah, they're thinking he's not going to be radical enough to win, which is absolutely mind-boggling.
They've tried to smear him as alt-right because, I know, right? Because he spoke out about not having completely open borders because it might hurt American jobs. And then he said that negotiating the trade deals, especially NAFTA, is like a good thing. And so now Bernie Sanders is alt-right.
Oh, wow.
Skip the centralist.
Yeah, like, all the way over.
You're like the first person in like public say you're socialist, but Democratic socialist, whatever. And now AOC is taking your stuff. I mean, don't let him don't let her do that, Bernie.
But first. And I'm sorry to talk more, but the gun issue too, even Bernie Sanders was one of the better Democrats on guns. And even since then, he's had to kind of kowtow to the Democrat line, because he actually got, what did he get, like a C from the NRA or something? Like he got like some mid-grade thing from them. And it's like, if you didn't get an F, then that means
that'll never get you voted on the Democratic ticket.
Yeah, because he's from Vermont, and goodness, like, God forbid that they actually have policies that represent the people that live there, you know, because they're like, well, it's Vermont, we have to have a gun to eat sometimes.
Oh yeah, and do y'all remember when Vermont was the only state that had permitless carry? Like, it was called Vermont carry for a long time.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, the more you know.
That's right. Yeah, I just realized I'm much older than y'all are.
Well, you don't know that. I'm like kind of scared to be like, actually, how old are you?
Yeah,
I'm gonna be like,
probably closer than you think.
We'll see. No,
I just wasn't paying as much attention. You were just probably more in the know than me earlier on.
Yeah, you know, for a long time, I was the same way. Like, I wasn't paying attention. Like, I definitely wasn't paying attention in high school. Like, I grew up in Colorado. When I was a freshman in college, I came home from class, and my I guess hallmates, everyone in my hall was crowded around the television watching Columbine unfold, and that was before we had cell phones, and there was guys that were wondering if their sisters were going to make it out alive. You know, so. That kind of gives you an idea of how long I've been paying attention. But at the time, like, I wasn't, like, I had a Ruger 1022, but I didn't have a dog in the fight. But once you start to like, I've always said that, like, firearms are like the first little taste of freedom. Once you realize, like, how ridiculous it is to like build an AR-15 or to own an AR-15, like, you can have a 14.5-inch barrel, but only if the muzzle device is pinned and welded. Otherwise, it's a short barrel rifle, and that's in this category over here. You know, and you start to look at all those laws, and you realize, like, wow, there's what else is there out there? And then it just opens your eyes to, like, this whole network, this mishmash of like, you know, I guess, bad actors within the government. You know, the government is the people, and the people, like, you know, the aforementioned Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're just bad actors who are trying to, you know, do as much as possible to take away individual rights and put them in the collective in the government. And luckily, we live in the most amazing time ever, because there's voices out there like yours. There's voices out there like the Steven Crowder you mentioned, and people that ordinarily wouldn't get any time in mainstream media. And we can sit here on YouTube and we can listen to you and figure out, like, oh, there are people out there like me. It's okay to be into guns and go to shooting competitions every weekend and to think, like, oh yeah, family values are awesome, you know, and stuff like that. So while it does look bleak, and, like, the mainstream media wants to make it look bleak, like, I think this is really the best time for this to be happening, because they can't do it in the dark anymore. We shine a light on it every day.
Absolutely, man.
That's really true. I think about it as well. People complain about kind of this big tech dystopia that we're in, which is somewhat true, because even with what happened with Antonia's channel, it was a situation where they could turn it off like that and turn it back on, and they can kind of erase a channel like it never existed and all of that. But at the same time, with the assistance of things like VPNs, and the more and more we encrypt things, the harder and harder it is to suppress things as well. Because even with the situation in New Zealand, and I shouldn't even talk about that too much because that might get us demonetized. Yeah, right. But even with that, you know, they've been trying to keep that information from getting out, and they just can't do it, because people can put on a private a VPN, like I said, and then just pretend they're in a different country, and all of a sudden different country laws apply, and then they can see it. So I just think that while these like tech monopolies are kind of nefarious, I also think that there's, like, once something's out on the internet, it is out, and you can't really put it away again. So this talk right now, they really can't get rid of it, even if
exactly.
Even if I decide I don't want it out.
I know.
No, delete it. Delete YouTube. Where are you when I need you? Oh, yeah.
They'll keep it to blackmail us later.
Remember when you guys said black don't crack? 15 years later.
I'm sorry. Aren't you glad that you came on the show now?
Yeah, this is awesome. We should do this every Monday.
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to have you back on. But before you go, we want to let our audience know about your show. Can you tell them more about it and how they can finally, since you're back right now, at least on the directory, how they can get in touch with you and watch or listen to your show, your podcast?
Yeah, if you're into, well, thank you for that. And if you're into podcasts, the Three Gun Show is the easiest way to learn about competition shooting. I have pros from all over the United States and around the world who shoot at the top level, and they share all their secrets on the show every week. And we've got 247 episodes now, and 50 bonus episodes in Patreon. A lot of them are streamed on YouTube, and we're doing more and more YouTube content in 2019 as well. So 3gunshow.com is where you can find it. And yeah, I guess if you do want to listen to the podcast, just search for 3 Gun Show. We're back in iTunes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I will say I love 3 Gun. I got to do the fantasy camp in Vegas with the NSSF
Really?
years ago, and our team won, but we had Diana Mueller, so of course.
Nice.
But yeah, it was amazing. It was
nice.
Awesome. So yeah, I highly suggest people who have not looked into it, just don't have the time, traveling all the time, but I love 3 Gun. It is so much fun. I mean, rifles, shotgun, and handgun. I mean,
at the same time. I mean, can you go anywhere? It's
can't get better.
Luckily, this is American. We can do whatever we want.
Not to mention, now you know that like Apple has been trying to censor these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the stuff you want to go seek out and find out.
It must be the good stuff if Apple wants to squelch us a little bit, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for joining us. We can't wait to have you back on later, but we're gonna let you go. Thanks for.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. You have a wonderful night.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
All righty, we're back.
We're back.
But
I hope you guys enjoyed our guest. I liked talking to him.
Yeah, me too. He was really sweet. And that's what I love too, because people have this idea of gun people or whatever, like even white guys, okay? Right? There are different people out there, right? Like you just have this like this type of idea of what a gunner or pro gunner is or whatever, and people debunk it all the time. So great people are in this community, and that's why it's important that we share these different voices and faces, because really it's everybody. That's who we are. The Second Amendment community is everybody.
And that's why we like to bring these guests on, so that you guys can find out more, characters in the Second Amendment community.
Absolutely.
I always get excited to meet people too. So we got a couple comments in the live chat during that. Intentional dishonesty is how these SM companies operate. That's from Brian Vocht again. Yeah, I do think that they're being intentionally dishonest. Part of the reason why I haven't filed any kind of legal suit, not just on not just on Antonia's behalf, but even I've thought about reaching out to some of these other personalities who have been demonetized or banned or whatever. The issue is that you have to, for a breach of contract, you have to show damages. And so, especially in Antonia and I's case, we didn't even stream a video between when she was demonetized and when they redid it. So financially, I don't think that we wouldn't really have damages to prove. But if they had permanently demonetized you for any content going forward in the future, I mean, think about the consequential kind of damages we could allege from that. I mean, we could say, we expect our channel to be this many subscribers by this many days. How much money would we make on this many videos with it? We could have gone wild with that.
When sponsors come into play, we're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
That's very true. Basically. That's very true. Hey, so who's that? I don't know. All these names, Gally Dotty.
Yeah. Galil Dowdy.
Gilly Dally.
Is that
Hey.
Hey.
I kind of probably butchered that name. I'm so sorry. Thanks for being a new subscriber. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
And then Stimulintellect says, big tech is biased. Google, Apple, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. I wish a fix existed. Yeah,
Okay, so I know. He's like, as in the rifle. Hey, I'm still learning, okay? Literally, there's always like new rifles and companies I'm still learning about. Like, yeah, like the Russian company, like, yeah.
And I'm more of a revolver gal too. So,
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. Well, good. I'm
Yeah,
glad you're
thanks for
honest.
being. Yeah, we're gonna need it.
And to Stimulintellect's point, I wish a fix existed too. Although I have to say, I think Facebook is really.
Oh, do you see on the? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you mean like people are gonna start leaving? Yeah.
Yeah. I barely use it. It's the least used of the social
True.
media companies for me. And I think that Facebook has really gotten ban happy, especially with political campaigns, and I think that's going to be a problem.
Okay, but I didn't even know that just because I don't use Facebook.
See, there
Sorry.
you go. But see, that's the thing. I don't even know about that from using Facebook. I know about that from using Twitter.
Oh, really? Oh,
like Twitter.
Ultimate burn.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But
so-
yeah, I mean, they still own Instagram. That's the thing is like that's why they go on to the next platform and they buy it because they're just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be irrelevant and this other thing.
Don't they own Snapchat too? Maybe someone in the
I
live
think they tried to.
chat.
I don't think
tell me
Snapchat's been bought
yet.
yet.
Yeah, I thought that they were trying to get all of that under their clutches.
Facebook, yeah, clutches. I love it.
Yeah,
that's a good.
I really think about Facebook like that because once they got rid of the college student requirement, they're like, we just want anybody possible.
I still remember that. I still remember having to give my email, and I remember being happy that I just got accepted because now I can go on Facebook. That's when it started, guys. That's sad.
It's true.
It's not that I got into college. It's that I can now have a Facebook account. Oh. Pray for us, guys. Pray for us.
Brian Vogt is also a new sub. Welcome to you as well. I really appreciate you being active in the live chat as well. We really encourage people to ask us questions. But if there's no more right now, I have a couple news stories we could chat about. I don't know if we have to though. What are you thinking?
We have a little bit of time. We can end with that.
Okay, well, do you want to talk insane Kamala Harris, or do you want to talk good man with a gun at the synagogue?
Oh, that's a whole different episode. So
let's do Kamala Harris then.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are paying attention, Kamala Harris did a town hall the other day. And I have a screenshot.
Is it town hall like she's a senator doing town hall or like CNN town hall?
A CNN town hall. Okay. And of course I lost her quote. After all of that, you saw me take the screenshot too, and I lost it.
Is it behind that?
Maybe if I pull this down. But in essence, Kamala Harris was asked a question about gun violence and what she was going to do in response to that. It's probably this. Yeah. And so here is a quote from Kamala Harris. Upon being elected, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws. Harris said, if they fail to do it, then I will take executive action. And she didn't really, she went into some specifics about what that executive action might be, but that's enough to be damning, in my opinion, right there. Yeah. For a number of reasons. If you have, I can let you go on.
No.
First, if you want.
I think this is all about liberty. So
I guess
so
it's
many.
True.
Yes,
it's true. But I take a few issues with this. The first is that she's effectively giving an ultimatum to the U.S. Congress. However, it should be situated upon which she may become president, which is that unless the body of government that is in charge for representing the will of the people agrees with my plan, I'm just gonna, as the president, do it anyway. And you've got 100 days to come into agreement with me. And so for me, this is a blatant statement that she's going to legislate as a president, not be executing the law as the law is written by the legislative branch. She's going to go forward and just do whatever she wants. To me, this is also an admission that she thinks that the president has the authority to do this in any way, shape, or form, even if it had a legislative branch, that it would be okay to unilaterally take executive action on individuals' firearms.
You don't get more authoritarian than that, really.
Yeah.
Just, you know what? Who cares? And the fact executive action, I'm sure she probably, but especially her party, were always the first ones to start talking about when Trump would, want to do things through executive action. But even before him was Obama, and they always wanted to pretend that he didn't really make that a popular thing in the modern presidency.
Plenty of executive orders too.
Absolutely. And Brian just talked about that another politician that doesn't know constitutional law. I used to believe that because people would talk about that with Obama all the time, he was a constitutional lawyer. I don't really believe, not a constitutional lawyer. He's taught constitutional law.
Yeah, he was a professor.
As a professor of it while he was a senator. But I don't really believe that anymore. I don't think that they don't understand it or they don't know it. I believe that's even more sinister thing, is that they understand it, they know it, but they decide to do that anyways. That's the more sad thing about this whole thing, is that yes, that they don't they know what they're doing, but they're deciding to be authoritarian anyways.
And that's the other thing too. A lot of people don't know really what is taught in law school, in constitutional law. But especially any elite law school you go to, they're not going to teach you that the Constitution definitively means what it says, and that what we're doing is looking at the document as it's written and trying to interpret it based on how it was written at the times, like why they wrote it, right? They'll teach you that for about a day or two in constitutional law about what's called originalism. But then for the rest of the course, it's all going to be about how the Constitution actually doesn't really mean what it says. And you can kind of make the Constitution say whatever you want it to say. So I think they do. I think they know constitutional law. They just know it as taught by elitist universities, which is essentially to say that the Constitution is a fluid document that doesn't really mean anything.
It's basically a template for modern history, right? Modern, whatever sway we have from one opinion to the other of, it's just the outline, but really you can do with it what you want, what you wish, what do you think is privilege, what do you think isn't privilege, and change it based on that. So kind of the part that illustrates government power, we're going to use that to expand the government. We're going to interpret that more broadly all the time. And the parts that are about your individual rights, we're going to limit those. We're going to keep narrowly picking away at those. So I think they do understand constitutional law. It's just not in any sense that the average American would understand what constitutional law is. Absolutely.
And I was shocked when I went to law school to learn that. So liberal fascists love some crises. I could do a whole podcast on that.
We probably will.
Never
a lot. That's like 3 topics that we're already like, oh, we need a whole podcast.
Yeah.
A whole podcast. Oh, you didn't even say episode. Whole podcast.
A whole podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going 100, 200 episodes on this one, on this different topic. But yeah, absolutely. But thank you guys so much for joining us today, talking about censorship and having our guests on today and the great questions that have come after that.
Sorry, that was my phone.
It's like that's YouTube, guys, finally telling us not. I just love the fact that they could email us in the beginning telling us that it was taken away, but they can't email us when they want to put it back. I still
think that's one of the weirdest things about the whole demonetization is that
email.
Yeah, is that they emailed you to tell you it was taken away, but you only found out that it was reinstated by checking your website later or your channel later, and then seeing Breitbart had received a statement from YouTube regarding. Yeah, it's like.
like, and like, you got to talk to a person too. I'm so jealous. It wasn't spokes like email. It wasn't spokes, whatever. It was an actual person. I'm glad they put a person in there because I know I'm sure they have to put person instead of man or woman or whatever. Because yeah, misgendered or something. That's a different podcast.
Sued for misgendering.
Yes. So anyway, before we get ourselves in more trouble than we already are, thank you guys for joining Trigger Warning 2A. I'm Antonia Okafor.
And I am Nina Prevot. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe below, guys. And if you want to support us financially, I know Patreon, people have weird thoughts about it. But for now, if you want to support us, you can go to Patreon, and we're Trigger Warning 2A podcast.
Yes, become a patron and support us. You're just everyday activist and lawyer who talk about everything guns. Oh, I mean, sorry, Second Amendment.
Second Amendment, not guns. Guns is a trigger word.
Yeah, trigger word. All right, we'll see you guys later. Bye, y'all.
Love you guys.